Today is Monday, February 22nd, 2016, the feast of St. Peter's Chair at Antioch, and also George Washington's birthday in the United States. Um, Today, obviously, I'm going to mention briefly the most recent Catholic news that's been going on, and it is not very pretty. It's not very pretty. First, with the somewhat of politics in government, the recent passing, sudden death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, who died while had a heart attack supposedly while on vacation in Texas, and this past Saturday he was laid to rest. And the unfortunate part about it is not so much the implications of his potential replacement, but his actual circumstances itself, especially when he was currently, at the time of his death, probably the only faithful Catholic with a position high up in the federal government and obviously on the judiciary, and he attended the traditional Latin Mass, and also that his priest son, Father Paul Scalia, also regularly says the traditional Mass too. I assume he attended his son's Masses, but I'm not too certain about that. But the main issue is the fact of the matter that his official state funeral at the National Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C., was according to the Novus Ordo. And obviously, as a traditionalist Catholic, I am really upset about that situation, and mostly because not so much necessarily because his son is a traditional priest. Okay, he's a diocesan priest in the neighboring Arlington, Virginia. But I'll say this, okay? It was obviously Father Paul mentioned in his sermon. I watched it on TV. That as soon as the word came out that he passed away, the Cardinal Archbishop of Washington, D.C., Donald Wuerl, okay, who's a total idiot, okay, he stepped in, he intervened, and he said that the state funeral was going to be at the basilica, and lo and behold, Cardinal Wuerl obviously was there, along with the papal nuncio, Bishop Laverty, from Arlington, and then I wasn't sure who the other bishop was, probably one of the auxiliary bishops of D.C., but still. Okay, so the pretty much Novus Ordo bishops, okay, especially the Cardinal of D.C. and the papal nuncio were present, okay, and then obviously the Cardinal Wuerl stepped in, okay, and intervened, and he said the funeral is going to be here at this basilica, and that was it. And obviously we know, everyone who knows, okay, Cardinal Wuerl is not, he hates the traditional mass, so obviously he coerced Father Paul into offering the Novus Ordo as the official state funeral for Justice Scalia, which was really pathetic, even though it was reverently done according to Novus Ordo standards. It was pathetic. He should have got the Requiem Mass. No excuses there. And even if they had to have it, now personally, I don't know if they, if Father Paul or was or did offer a private Latin Requiem Mass. I'm not sure. I'm not. That's probably never going to be known, because obviously it was on TV that his was a conservative Novus Ordo funeral mass. But hey, the justice, obviously he was the highest ranking, I will say the highest ranking traditionalist Catholic, not just on the judiciary, but in the federal government at the time of his death. And he doesn't get a Requiem Mass. I mean, come on, okay? Okay, even in awful, and it's awful, let me say this. Apparently, he was probably more Catholic than President Kennedy was in practice and in philosophy and in that. And then President Kennedy, obviously, don't think this was back in '63. He got a Requiem Mass said by Cardinal Cushing as the official state requiem. But I mean, this over the weekend was a disgrace, and it was. I mean, obviously not too many people are saying that, but it is a disgrace. But I do have some good news that Tutum Boston is actually hosting a requiem on the 7th. It would be the 7th day after burial variety. The praise of the Mass would be of that, but it would be held on, this Saturday, February 27th at 7 o'clock at Mary Immaculate Church in Newton Upper Falls in the Archdiocese of Boston. So at least they're filling the void that way. But either way, he should have got his official funeral should have been the traditional Requiem Mass. And his son should have been allowed to say it as such publicly with the 3,000 people present, okay? On TV and everything, okay? I mean, shame on Cardinal Wuerl for stepping in like that and coercing the new Mass on a traditional Catholic and his priest son, traditional priest son, and this is sad. And now let me say that, but let me comment here, okay? If I were ever an elected official, okay, and if I either died in office or I was retired at the time of my death, okay, and if I don't get, obviously I would specify in my last arrangements in a will that it'd be the traditional Requiem Mass. If it's not, then ice my body until a priest comes and says one in presence of my dead corpse, okay? Because this what happened over the weekend was actually a disgrace. And I mean, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It was a disgrace. Okay, I understand it was done reverently fine, but the Justice Scalia attended the traditional Latin Mass. Okay, pretty much regularly, just like I do. And what in his official funeral should have been like should have been the Requiem Mass, no questions asked. And and in this otherwise, you know, obviously that's that. So I'm going to put that aside for now, and I'm going to mention more bull crap that's going on with Pope Francis, okay? Bergoglio, and also, obviously, it's really pathetic now, this papacy, okay? Really pathetic, okay? He even now, he said to saying that building a wall, when he was down in Mexico, he on the plane going home back to Rome, he said building a wall is not Christian, meaning building a wall on the Mexican border. And that is very hypocritical because the Vatican has a wall, okay, protecting it, and that's a city-state. So the U.S. cannot build a wall on the Mexican border to protect itself. I mean, come on. And obviously, he's obviously targeting Donald Trump and Ted Cruz for this, because right now they're the only two candidates left who promise to build the wall. And obviously Trump says if ISIS attacks the Vatican, he wished that the Pope should have wished that Trump were president. So I mean, obviously that statement was fallible. It is no place in dogma. It was a stupid political correct comment. It is no place in the magisterial teaching of the church. And now the Pope's other probably more serious comment was about the Zika virus, which is a sexually transmissive disease, which has been spreading down in South America, okay? And I don't know, it's probably similar to like AIDS, but Zika comes from the mosquitoes, okay, which can cause damage to potentially the babies when they're born or something like that. I'm not a medical professional, so I'm not qualified to say what the actual precautions are, but I will say this, okay, that everyone now is pretty much disturbed of the Pope's comments saying that people down there who are affected can use condoms. Okay, that obviously is also fallible big time, because it even defeats Humani Vitae, the encyclical issued by a not so great Pope Paul VI, and that actually says no birth control. Okay, there you go. Now in this particular case, okay, that NFP, natural family planning or rhythm or abstinence, would be permissible because if having intercourse will cause disease in this case, then married couples would legitimately abstain for medical reasons, which is perfectly licit. But because obviously if this happens, you're going to get a disease this way. So so instead of telling the persons that they are to be chaste during the time during the term that the couple, one or the other, has infected with the virus, he tells them, "Oh, just go use a condom." Okay, that's not the Catholic teaching. Never was, and it will never will be. And if this Pope is saying stuff like this, then obviously, if there are not enough people under him, like even bishops or parish priests, if they're not correcting the Holy Father in this regard, then they're bad. They're Judases too. So you can't, but you can't just have it both ways. Well, if you have, it's like, oh, if you have AIDS, one you has AIDS, use a condom to have intercourse. No, sexual intercourse is not to be used solely for pleasure. It's for procreation of children, and that's why the church's teaching obviously explicitly states that a married couple, unless they are sick or unless they have to be separated for a lawful reason, like military service or hospitalization or imprisonment, they are required, if they are both healthy and if there's no risk of disease, that they are required to perform intercourse pretty much every night. And if they don't, it's a mortal sin. And if they that's why and if they actually purposely abstain on a fertile day that prevents conception of a child, that too is also a mortal sin. And and so so that's why I never back NFP, because to, as far as I'm concerned, it all it is a form of birth control. So, and that's obviously, that was never the church's teaching, that you could any married couple can just go and use birth control whenever the hell they want. That was never the church's teaching, and it will never will be. But also at the same time, I'm not saying that every single person who has unprotected unprotected intercourse means that they follow the rules. But if they end up with luck with no children by no fault of their own, or they didn't take any drugs to prevent fertility or conception, or they never had a mastectomy or vasectomy, then that's not their fault. But if they intentionally do that, that is a mortal sin. So anyway, please pray hard and please pray. It is Lent. Please, you should be, if you are healthy, you should be abstaining from meat every day, fast and abstinence on Fridays, and that's that. So there you go. In nomine Patri,